So today I want to do some more hardware hacking, and what I'm hacking today is something that's really old. It's a PDA, personal data assistant, and there used to be multiple brands of it. I think Apple Newton was kind of the first that was most famous, although it was maligned by some bad reviews about it. There were devices before Apple Newton, but they were even less known. And then of course the 3Com Palm Pilot came out, and because it had semi handwriting recognition, it had a graffiti type, it was called graffiti script, where you could use the stylus to write text pretty quickly on the screen. I don't remember if Apple Newton had a keyboard on it. I don't think it did, but there might have been an on-screen keyboard, but whichever way, Apple Newton just didn't take off, but 3Com Palm Pilot took off. And then later on, Microsoft and HP and Dell got into providing mobile Windows, and that's what these pocket PCs were. This is the HP iPaq brand, and this particular model comes with 64 megabytes of memory. And what I want to do is I want to see if I have the right chips to increase the memory to 128 megabytes. And then I'm gonna look to see if I can upgrade the ROM in it to the latest Windows Mobile version. And I'm doing all this just to play around and also practice soldering and hardware hacking, and practice is learning. And so if I learn on the devices that are not as critical to to me, then not much loss if I screw up. And I already have a video of soldering SDRAM, so this is more of the same. I'm going to be removing 2 SDRAM chips. Of course, these are special. I looked up the data sheet, and it says these are low energy, low power LP DRAM, where I would be replacing it with SDRAM chips. And I think the SDRAM chips that I'm replacing with are going to be the same size, but somehow I'm not able to really work out the math. And one way, when I compute it one way, it does tell me that it will double the RAM, but I'm not entirely certain. So I'm gonna try to remove these chips without damaging the device too bad, and solder on the new chips. So I'm gonna turn on the time-lapse mode, and because we've been over this before. Well, there you have it. Where am I? I'm over here. So I soldered on the SDRAM, but the Pocket PC doesn't want to turn on. And at first, when I was putting it back together, I was trying to turn it on and nothing was happening, but I could feel that I'm not getting a click from the button. And so I took it apart again, and I discovered that there was this little yellow disc made out of the PCB material. And at first I thought that it went into the speaker spot, but then I thought, why would, there would be a piece of PCB with a tiny hole in it be in front of the speaker? So I was lining things up and trying to see how the button lines up, how this clear button on the case lines up with the button on the PCB, and I could tell that it wasn't reaching the button. So I figured that that tiny disc goes in between, and so I am not getting click anymore. Okay, there we go. There's the click. It's kind of either here nor there. Okay. So that was the trick. Otherwise, it's not the hardest device to take apart and put together. This goes back to 2002, 2003, and they haven't been gluing things together yet. Although the click wheel iPod, the original iPod, it's also on snaps, plastic snaps, so it's not glued together. So I am not giving up yet. I'm gonna try to see if the battery got discharged, because obviously this is an old device and the battery has little life in it. So it's possible that the battery has discharged while I was doing all this, because I did turn it on with the original memory once or twice. See, I'm not getting a click again. This is really mysterious, so I'm gonna have to look into that. But I look into the battery, and I look at the chips. Not the chips, but see, there's now a strange bulge. There's a strange little bulge here around the screen. And what is that from? Is that from the button? Is that because I put that disc in there and now the button is pushing out the plastic on the screen, making it bulge out? So maybe I'll try to Google disassembly of this particular iPaq and see if there are still some posts about it, telling you the details, and maybe I'll discover the mystery of the disc. But for now, this is it, and you saw that soldering the memory chips is the same as in my SDRAM soldering video, and I'm skipping a lot of steps. Somebody will criticize me and say, well, after you took the old chips off, you should have used the soldering iron to prepare the pads on the PCB, and I just left them. After I removed the old chips, the original chips, I just left the solder on the PCBs whichever way it was, which of course it was kind of bumpy. So that took me longer time to line up the new chips, to go onto the PCB pads. I did add some flux to help the chips to solder on once the solder melted. and so the flux would be a catalyst to help to solder things on. And then after I soldered, and you saw that after I soldered the chips on the first time, both of them, one of them was a little bit out of alignment, so I took it off, tried to line it up again, and soldered it on again. And then I used the soldering iron and went over all of the pads on the chips and made sure that the solder melted and attached to the PCB traces. My actual soldering iron from the soldering station has burnt out, so now I'm relying on this little 30-watt, basic soldering iron, which thank God I have one, because otherwise I would be stuck not able to do any projects. So I will try to see if the battery is charged up and see if I can turn it on, and if not, I'll have to put the original chips on. But then I want to figure out how to upgrade either upgrade to Windows Mobile, Windows CE on it, or I'm also reading that there were some projects where Android was compiled for some of these devices, so I will need to look into that. So it's kind of a little bit more hacking and just scratching my hardware itch, and like I said, it's practice. You get to practice on something that's not as critical, and that means that when you work on something that's more important, you have experience, you know the pitfalls, and you know how to be careful, and you know what are the better practices of doing things. And of course, I'm picking up a lot of stuff from watching YouTube videos, like for example, learning how to use aluminum shields when using the heat gun to protect plastic parts that are close by, because using the heat gun is really tricky. It's very easy to overheat things, so much so that PCB traces can come delaminated and get removed, and then the PCB gets screwed. In fact, that's what happened to a router I was trying to upgrade the memory in, and I was swapping the chips on it so much that eventually the PCB just gave up, and I got soldering pads for the chips that went missing, that got removed. They lost their adhesion with the PCB and got broken off. So heat gun is really tricky to work with, and of course some people will also say that the heat gun, because you're not heating up from the bottom, you're not heating up the PCB evenly from both the top and the bottom, that just using the heat gun from one side can lead to the PCB warping, and that would be another issue too. But I'm taking my risks with, like I said, with the hardware that's not as critical. So in any case, that's it for now. If the battery is fine, I may have to take it apart again and put the original chips back on and walk away with the tail between my legs. Instead of 64 megabytes, instead of 128 megabytes, still have the 64 megabytes in it. But hey, I tried. So and I got a video out of it. So hopefully this was interesting to you. And stay tuned, subscribe, and if you want, click on that bell icon to get the notifications, because I am trying to remember to record whenever I work on some projects. Okay, bye.